going that way. Yeah, that way this will be done. That. Publish as a... Why is Facebook asking me if I'm trying to hire someone when I publish a post on... Are you hiring? Would you like to publish this as a job post or a regular post?
It's a job
Yeah.
offered by Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
Right. Should totally set them up that way. Just so I'm gonna get my players now to just start. You get your jobs from Facebook.
Burp. Can you hear that burp burp? I hope not. Okay.
Nope.
This is what everybody tunes in to the show early to watch this part. The exciting. They want to see how the sausage is made.
To watch us fumble.
Yeah. Retweet here and here. And then I think that's it. We're live. Okay, good. Whew. That takes care of that. I didn't shave this time. I usually shave on stream days.
Yeah. I shaved because I figured I had to look pretty for radio. Oh, yeah.
You should. Oh, all you guys are frozen because I need to do this. Okay, there you go.
We are.
You're good now.
That's
I thought
a-
Scott was frozen for a second, but it turns out he was just frozen in real life.
Yeah, I just don't move. Had that issue
So,
earlier today. I was talking to somebody on Skype and they're like, I thought you were frozen. No, I was just sitting still.
It's a pretty slick little overlay, Bobby. Good job. Fun.
You like it? Thanks. Damien gets most of the credit. I just laid out the elements, but he designed it. So
I like all the glowy
theme.
stuff we got,
Yeah.
like lights. Yeah, I'll probably steal that for later. Sorry now. All right. keep it.
I have no idea what you all are looking at. I'll have to go look later.
Yeah, if you look at the Twitch, it's just the Twitch like overlay around the pictures and stuff. And
Ah.
it's all cool. So, I don't know. They've been doing a lot of like Photoshops and stuff like that to just do neat icons and things lately.
We've been trying to make things prettier. What with the Shadowcasters network being a thing now, we're trying to look like.
Yes.
We're see, the thing is, we're trying to convince everyone
Try to
that we're
look professional.
pros. Yeah, so we figure we ought to look the part. Yeah. Let me get that chat popped out. Scott, if you are able to, certainly not a requirement, but if you're able to go to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Shadowcasters Network, then you
Funny
can
you
watch
said
the
that.
chat.
That's exactly what I'm doing right now.
There you go.
I have another computer sitting in front of me, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go look that up.
Yeah, it
Just
just
gotta not use the mouse that's next to me.
yeah. The
I guess I could have sent you a link when we were talking about it just a second ago. That would have been smart. Yeah.
Actually, it wouldn't have worked because then I would have been on like I'm talking to you on my PC and my
gotcha.
other computer is
Yeah.
sitting in my lap. So hey, look, there we are. Oh my God, that's weird. Hey, we have an advertisement going now.
Oh yeah, Twitch
Oh.
will like display ads for a minute. It shouldn't take long.
Hey, you give me an extra E on my name, but that's okay.
Did I? Where's the E?
I've always wanted to be Scott Schletz.
Did I put an
It
extra
was
E
in
on
the-
there?
Only on
In the
title.
In the title.
Not on
yeah.
my title. Okay.
Oh, the stream title. I'll fix that.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Right, nice.
That was just a typo. I got you right on the picture.
Yeah, I was first looking at the picture part, and I was like, if you took out the E, you have no vowels in your last name. How does that work?
Yes, I know. In my
Scott
entire name,
Schletz.
I only have 2. Even my middle, I only get 4. I have a lot of consonants in my name.
Mhm.
Just makes it sound like you're clearing your throat all the time.
So now I have to turn the sound off and pay attention to our conversation. I keep staring at our screen because
Yeah.
that delay is like, this is
Yeah,
crazy. I'm
the main
watching the
benefit to doing
future.
that is just being able to see the chat if you want to be able to see what people are chatting to
cool.
us about. Oh. I'm going to do a sound check with you guys real fast. Since I just redid all this stuff, I might have screwed it up. So let's see. Can you hear this? Okay. Good. Good. Cassie, I discovered that we have like so many backlogged questions to answer now because, like, you remember for the Streamathon, I solicited a bunch of questions for people. Oh, no, maybe it wasn't the Streamathon. Maybe it was the next episode. One of the episodes we did like a Q&A, or maybe it was the Streamathon. I don't know.
We did that at Origins and stuff too.
Yeah. And
been a few
the
of them now.
the last time I told people to send me a bunch of questions, I didn't check it like within like I think half a day before we actually went live because I'd picked out some questions and I didn't realize that like within that half a day tons of questions came in, so we've got so many.
Fun. I'll try and help answer them.
Usually we only pick what 2 or 3 an episode, so you're off the hook for answering all of those questions. But we always like to have a backlog because we'll go through dry spells and I'll start getting worried that we won't have questions to answer. I should remind myself what the questions are. Oh, I'll remind myself when I read them. Okay, so you guys heard that. I'll make sure my music's all right. Okay, that's a good one.
Well,
Ooh. No. Those are loud. That was. Ooh, that's what I'm looking for. Is everybody in the chat excited to hear us talk about CFD, the least controversial topic in Shadowrun? That's what I've been billing it as.
Two totally different people.
Yeah. Dr. Kalb. Always excited. Right.
You hear my dog back there eating.
Yes,
Ding,
I do.
ding,
I was
ding,
I was
yeah.
wondering who was outside of a Walmart at Christmas time.
Sorry. It didn't eat all day, but now's the time. It's done.
Oh, a warning, Scott, because some people get worried when they see this that I didn't notice. If my camera freezes, this one that you can see on Skype, it's okay. It's a different camera than the stream is seeing, so I don't care.
Yeah, I caught the different angle there because I can actually see the pictures behind you in the in the one on the screen, and then you have the I have one of those around the corner here of the Two of Swords from Echo because it's the story
Nice.
I wrote for.
Yeah, cool. I wanted to get some more prints at Gen Con this year, but I was flying and I didn't want them to get messed up on the return trip, so.
I drive, so yeah, Chicago and Indianapolis to fly would be silly.
Yeah, no kidding.
I can literally get there in the same amount of time it takes me to drive as it would to go to the airport, wait at the airport, fly down, and then leave the airport.
But driving is
I think
safer.
I should get there faster.
Or I mean, not driving, flying is safer. I hate driving.
Only if you skew the statistics.
All right, we are going to get started here. I'm cranking everything up. I think we're ready to get going. And I'll start the music. Chat room, start making some noise. I don't know what that means. And we will go live in just a second. I'll give a countdown. Let me get this going. Let me go. I didn't go through my checklist ahead of time, so let me make sure that I didn't mess anything up, because I just realized that I almost did by not recording the audio. We've been doing this for a while. Can you tell? Episode, what, 25? CFD. All right, good. You guys gave me some silence. I was going to ask for it anyway. Checklist. We got soundboard set up, show notes, that sound, call the guest, start the stream, sound test, record. Okay. All right, we will get started in 3, 2, 1.
Carl! 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 Carl!
Carl.
Hey everyone, it's Thursday, September 7th. My name's Bobby Frankenberger, and you're listening to episode 25 of the Sixth World Podcast. The executive producer for today's episode is James O'Neill. Thank you for supporting the show, James, as always. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Cassie Levitt. How's it going, Cassie? I haven't seen you here in the Sixth World Podcast headquarters in like a month.
We have a headquarters?
Yeah, we're in it right now. You're over there.
Oh.
I'm sitting right here. You're over there in the booth, remember? And
Right, okay. Yeah. I need to get that same blanket and put up the same light things if you want to pull that con.
Yeah, exactly. How have you been doing in our month-long hiatus?
Oh, fantastic. Has it really been a month?
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, it has been a while. Yeah?
Well, I mean, we do them every 2 weeks, and
Yeah,
we
we did 'em
didn't.
2 weeks
We
ago.
missed last. No, we missed last episode.
Oh, all right then. I've got nothing. Good. No, I'm good. I'm happy. It's
Time
great.
time
Like that.
flies, you know. Time flies. Well, our guest today, we always have a guest. Our guest today has written over 1 million words between SR4 and SR5. He's had his hand in almost every book in this edition. And we'd like you to welcome Shadowrun freelance author Scott Schletz, or Scott Schletzy, as I misspelled earlier.
Thank you, Bobby.
How's it going,
Yeah,
Scott?
we want extra balls. I don't have enough. I'm good. How are you? I'm glad to be over here in the headquarters, the part of it that looks like my apartment, but I'm...
Well, we spare no expense to make people as comfortable as possible here, so we make a reproduction of everybody's home office every time.
Oh, there we go.
Right, exactly. I'm really excited to be talking about cognitive fragmentation disorder with you on today's episode.
Yeah, I take a lot of blame for that.
And you will. I've been billing it, as you may have seen on social media, I've been billing it as the Sixth World Podcast. Our topic this week is the least controversial topic in all of Shadowrun.
Just
So,
about.
Yeah. But,
Love it or hate it.
yeah. But I am excited to talk about it. It's actually something that I like a lot, but I won't blow it yet. We will get to it. But first, I want to thank our new patrons that we've gotten since the last time we've streamed. Last time we had an episode. New patrons Jacob Kalb, and Jeffrey Martin. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Thank you very much. We're actually really, really close to, I think I've said it before, we're really, really close to our $100 milestone, which if we get there, we're going to start experimenting with possibly taking a live call from people every once in a while on the show, which either will be really fun or something we stop doing immediately. So it's truly going to be an experiment. We don't know how it's going to go, but I'm excited to try it out. Also, if you're watching live, you already probably realize this. Maybe not, but because you might be watching from the old Twitch channel. But we're in a new home on a new Twitch channel, the Shadowcasters Network Twitch channel. And we had announced it last time. But for those of you listening at home and you want to listen live, don't go to the Sixth World Podcast Twitch channel anymore. We're at twitch.tv/Shadowcasters Network. So, yeah, do that. I don't have any stories to tell this week like I normally do. There's a hurricane coming, so I guess maybe I'll have stories to tell next time. But no, what have you guys been doing in Shadowrun? Scott, you've been doing much with Shadowrun other than writing the things that we're going to love and hate next?
Yeah, that's pretty much how I spend my time, writing the things we're gonna love and hate next. But no, I have a regular group that plays every couple of weeks. We are a short hiatus as we have switched over to D&D.
Oh no, sacrilege!
Something lazy and easy that doesn't require me to run the game.
Well, that's always a plus. Yeah.
Yeah, mostly homebrew, and actually I am using CFD in my home campaign. I have a current player who is lamenting her dilemma.
Oh no!
Over it, hating me for it, but it's a little bit of forward play testing and some of the cures, while also getting some role playing for her. So that's
cool. Awesome. What about you, Cassie? What have you been doing in Shadowrun since last we spoke?
They succeeded in breaking into the MCTZ zone. We did that, and now we are going to space on Sunday. We're gonna go to low Earth orbit.
So what normally happens is Cassie does some crazy stuff in her Emerald Grid games or her home games, and then we end up doing an episode about it at some point.
You're right. So we might do space.
Yeah.
But no, I'm going to try to take really good notes on this one and hopefully get it written as per Patreons as one of the runs next, because I think a lot of people enjoyed the aquacology, so space would be fun.
Yeah.
Go to Gagarin Moon Mars Base.
Oh, I would like to, but it takes 2 years to get there unless I fluff a faster way of travel. So yeah, I'll put some people on their way to Mars.
Do it like
we'll
side campaign, like a side campaign.
Yeah, we do side. I really would, if somebody was interested, I would love to actually do a campaign of like that's their origin story. So maybe play like a side campaign of this is where they're coming from, and then like they get to free advance 2 years and start playing on the grid in present day after that.
That could be neat. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be really cool. I'm gonna rocket us straight into the news, and we're gonna speed through that because there's a couple things I want to talk about in the news, and I want to get to CFD because I have a feeling that we might be talking for a while because I do want to talk about the history of CFD, and that's a complicated spaghetti mess of stuff. So I'm trying to anticipate that we might accidentally get ourselves into a mire. So let's do that.
Well, news today.
I always press like 8 buttons at once when I don't mean to on this. Let's this is what I meant to do.
We're doing it live. Go, Bobby. Go.
This is what I meant to have happen right here.
World news today.
Okay, I got it. I got it. Oh, there we go again.
Yeah, see, stop pressing buttons.
Okay, we're in the news. So one thing that kind of snuck up on me here was I saw some people talking about it on Facebook. Did you realize that Origins 2018 housing blocks are open already?
No. Thank you for noting that. Going to go open up a browser. So after we get done here, I can.
Cassie's going to excuse herself from the podcast for a moment while she books a hotel room. Yeah, so Origins, I remember thinking this last year also that they open up their housing blocks well in advance. I don't even think they're selling. I could be wrong about this, but I don't think they're selling tickets yet to Origins. So.
Probably not. I think last year when I booked a hotel for Origins, which we later canceled for an Airbnb, but I'm pretty sure I booked it before we had tickets or anything. I think.
Yeah, so I guess that's just the thing that they do. I did check out the dates since we were going to be talking about it. It's going to be June 13th to June 17th for people who are interested in going. I will not be. Are you going to be going, Cassie, next year, do you think?
Oh, yeah, hands down. Definitely going to Origins.
Awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
What about you, Scott?
I'm always up in the air for cons from year to year.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
depends on whether I have the time available.
Yeah. Well, I would love. I had a blast at Origins this year. Me and my wife went, but I don't think I'm going to go next year. I think next year I did both Origins and Gen Con this year, and I think it pushed us a little hard. We're going to be going also to Disney World with the 5-year-old, 4.5 now, but 5-year-old at the time, earlier in the year, and that's going to take a lot of Stephanie's time off as well as money. So so I think I'm going to only go to one, and I've decided to do Gen Con for multiple reasons. But so I probably will not be at Origins, guys. You'll catch me at Gen Con if you go there, though. I'm also going to try to go to Dragon Con next year. I'm trying to convince my wife to go with me. I have my dad.
It's probably a little closer to home, right?
Yes, it's like
It's
4
Atlanta,
hours.
right?
Yeah, it's like 4 hours away.
Yeah.
It's in Atlanta. I'm in Columbia, South Carolina. So, and even more, my dad lives in Atlanta, and we go. It's like easy. We go there.
Kill two birds, one stone.
Yeah, we go and visit my dad. We leave the kids with them during the day, so we don't even have to worry about that part of it because that's always something to do. And so I think I might be at Dragon Con next year. Of course, that's a long ways away. So next, Shadowrun missions online. I just wanted to do a quick update. We keep getting a lot of questions about that because people signed up for the beta. I have done a really bad job of communicating with people. If you're listening and you signed up for that by doing the fundraiser, I'm gonna send out an email hopefully here this weekend. If you're listening to this, hopefully I've done my job, and if you're listening on the podcast, hopefully I've done my job and you already got an email. But we're trying to get some sessions, some closed beta testing sessions up by the end of this month, and we are working on it. We haven't forgotten about it. We're doing it. There's stuff that we have to figure out. That's all. It's going to be really rough when it first launches, so don't judge us. Also, we're kicking off our Twitch kind of thing that we're doing. We're making some changes, and the Shadowcasters Network, we decided we want to do a little bit more with Twitch. So we're going a month-by-month schedule where we're doing different shows. And right now, I've got a schedule up on the website, shadowcasters.network. I think I don't know what the URL slug is. Just go in there, and it's under shows and schedule or something. But check it out. We got tomorrow night, September 18th. If you're listening live right now, me and Damien are going to be playing Overwatch, launching our new show, a video game show that me and Damien are going to be doing a couple times a month that we're calling Mediocre at Best. So kind of gives you a flavor of what skill level to expect when you're tuning in, guys. Also, what might be more interesting to people, and probably what more people know about, because if you're listening at home, you might still have a chance, which is September 13th, Wednesday night. We're going to be doing a lore Q&A on the Twitch channel here. I'm going to be having Russell Zimmerman, Opti or O.C. Presley, and Thomas Willoughby. The three of them are going to be joining us for a 2-hour-long Q&A about lore. So start sending questions or get your questions ready. We'll answer them live, but I'll probably solicit some ahead of time too. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we go to answering questions is a Kickstarter that I've heard about. It's an RPG Kickstarter, tabletop RPG called Identico, that I really want to plug because I think a lot of Shadowrun fans will find this interesting. Full disclosure: this is an old friend of mine from high school who is about to publish this game. So I may be a little bit biased, but I think it's really cool. I wouldn't bring it to you guys if I didn't think you would find it interesting. I'm going to give you a quick little read that he gave me because I think he's probably better at explaining it than I am. I haven't had a chance to read through the whole thing, but It says, Identico is a new cyberpunk-themed role-playing game about the struggle to define humanity and retain your identity in the highly digital era known as the static age. Corporations have created ways to monetize and commoditize a person's identity, and they'll stop at nothing but complete control over your everyday life. You play a character trying to survive in the static age, starting at the bottom and working your way up the social or corporate ladder by any means necessary. Identico is built on a new modern D20 system that emphasizes fast gameplay and rewards, social interaction, and role-playing. It's currently out on Kickstarter. You can learn more about the game and get access to a free beta of it, which I think is amazing, at playidentico.com. And that's I'll put a link in the Twitch chat for anybody who wants to check it out. So yeah, they've got a Kickstarter going to do that, and and whatnot. I think it takes place in 2099. Right, I think it would be interesting for Shadowrun fans for obvious reasons, right? But the way it's kind of different than Shadowrun is, first of all, it's hard sci-fi. It doesn't have like magic and orcs and trolls and stuff like that. But it's hard sci-fi. The way he explained to me is that it's intended to sort of be a fast-paced combat and hacking, for example, is supposed to be fast-paced and fluid and got roles on both sides of the equation, so keep people engaged and everything. It's still intended to have a fantastical nature of a fun RPG, though, is what he told me. There's this class called the Rover. I think this is really cool. It's a class called a Rover, and you get like an Iron Man robot suit thing, but you control it with your mind, right? Using what they call quantum communication. That's another thing about it, is that it uses they spent a lot of time trying to get like real world science and tech, but like extrapolating on that and turning it up to 11 and just making it really fun and out there. Now, the last thing that I think is kind of the one of the cool things that makes it different from Shadowrun is you don't have like typical experience or karma. This game uses what's called identity points, and they help you level up, but also in a lot of ways, the way that happens is by changing your influence in the world. So the whole thing is about your identity and about social influence and whatnot, and you spend that to kind of like gain favor of people, to bribe people, to gain advantages over people, and other types of advantages in the world that kind of give you an up and an edge. So check it out. It's got the free, like I said, a free beta that you can get access to. So it's I love it when games do that, to make it so that you can sit down and play it before before it's coming out like that. So I think that's a cool thing. So check it out if you're interested. All right. So now it's Q&A time, guys. Q&A. Do I have a bumper for that? I think that was what it was supposed to be. Q&A. So at this point in the episode, every day we answer some questions from the community. Those questions come from Twitter and also from our email. The Twitter is @6worldpodcast, the number 6. And we also take emails from the show at 6worldpodcast.com, or you can head over to our website, 6worldpodcast.com, and fill out the form there. Send us questions that way. Patrons, of course, get their priority on us answering their questions. So if you'd like to hope to better guarantee that we're going to answer your question, consider checking out our Patreon. First question is from beloved patron Keith King, who gives us lots of great questions. I'm going to ask that. He says, "Hi, Bobby and Cassie. Congrats on the live stream event. Given I'm on the other side of the world and have a newborn, I literally only caught the last 15 seconds of it. Hey, better than nothing, Keith. Glad to see you're role-playing the various stages of... Oh, I like this. Glad to see you're role-playing the various stages of Bobby's exhaustion for prosperity and those of us who missed it." He said, "Although this question will probably get us all on a list somewhere, I'm wondering about the transportation of restricted and forbidden weapons and cyberware across borders, in particular on commercial flights. Do you allow runners with high sins to pack their restricted weapons as luggage, quote unquote? Also, for the Street Sam who wants to run the gauntlet with his forbidden ware through the airport scanners, what level mad cyberware/chemical scanners do you assign the guards to have? Cheers, Keith.
I put an answer for it. Let's hear what Scott has to say. Do you let people go through the airport?
No. I mean, there's a reason why you have contacts with certain levels where they get you through restricted places. Now, if you put the money into getting like high level licenses on your stuff, then you think it'll pass. Sure, you can walk through and pretend you're corporate security, and that's why you're wearing, that's why you got wired reflexes, and you're wired to the max. But outside of that, it's you gotta call your Johnson, you gotta find your coyotes, you gotta call your smugglers. You're a Shadowrunner. You don't walk through the airport. you look like a terrorist.
So I was, this is a bit of real life history. I was in the military and come from a hunting community. So taking guns and stuff through an airport is actually really easy to do. Not easy, but you have to check it and there's rules, and if you follow the rules, you can do it. So I'll usually let people take restricted gear as long as they check their luggage, and declare it and have a license. I've done that.
And as long as their SIN passes the checks and whatnot.
Yeah, and they always get a SIN check immediately. You don't get to the airport without that. And then but for my guys who are more cyber, like kind of Scott's talking about, I usually be like, smugglers, right? You just get a smuggler contact and you pay them some extra money, and that's the life with cyber spurs. You
don't let them just roll up and you don't let them roll up and just tape the rocket launcher onto the bottom of the plane and.
No, we have a player who has a very peekaboo character too. We had to give him this kind of thing of I'm sorry, your arms are rocket launchers and a minigun. That you can't fly. I don't know.
You're not allowed on the airplane with that. Sorry.
Yeah. In some cases, I have had players, if they declare it or something, I've kind of fluffed that there's devices that essentially can disable it. If it seems like an internal weapon or something like that, we'll disable their wear. But if you're a little too wired to the gills, you're gonna have to call a coyote.
They've classically given the you get a little wrist brace around your wrist that if your spurs pop up, your hand goes away, or here's a collar. I hope it looks nice with your outfit, because the minute your wares activate, your head's going to pop off.
Right.
It's I'm glad you want to come through, but here's your collar, and pass on through.
The London Sourcebook actually had some good fluff back from first edition about trying to get into London with cyberware and stuff like that, because they were heavily restricted on guns and things too. So it's a nice one to check out if you're curious. As far as the actual mechanics side of that, the SIN scanners, straight up per core, one example is airports have a max sensor rating of 8.
Wow.
And for me, if you're going through an international air pallet like CTAC, then you're going through an 8-body scanner, right? You're gonna do the whole thing, and you're gonna get scanned, and they're gonna get pretty hard.
They're gonna get a nice view of your junk and all the weapons that you have.
So get an X-ray of that, skeleton, and and look at your gear. Oh, look, that's shaped an awful lot like a submachine gun. It's my airsoft. I'm going to a tournament.
So I do it to the max whenever I do scanners for that kind of thing, especially an international airport. If you're doing a puddle hopper from somewhere, you might be able to squeak by with a little bit more.
But I'm sure in the future, with the global threat of Shadowrunners being what they are, I'm sure it's even worse than it is today. And I had to have my backpack on the way to Gen Con was taken and emptied out, and they wiped some chemical analysis strips on it and put it into a machine. And what's even better is they dump it all out, and then they look at it and then they say sorry about that, and then they leave and say now put it back in.
Right. If you've ever been on an international airport too, a lot of the big airports will separate you from your luggage, so you're your checked luggage and your stuff is all kind of set over there and goes to the elevator or the scanners or whatever while you do this stuff, right? So they have kind of, but anyway, so max go hard. I think his question though specifically said handheld scanners too, which I think those are limited to a 3 sensor rating if you were doing the wand. But I have a hard time imagining you're gonna get through a SeaTac airport with the wand.
There's just gonna be a guy with a wand.
Yeah, again, at your really small local airports, maybe, but.
Yeah, well, I say especially with now, in Shadowrun, the scanners and stuff are so, well built and whatnot, and it's easy
and probably
to do
ubiquitous. Even at Columbia, South Carolina's airport, which is really tiny, I had to go through the full body thing, like so.
Yeah, my local airport here too has it too, and they do 3 flights a day or something, right? So
yeah, exactly. I've got like one terminal with like 4 planes that it can accommodate or something.
Yeah.
But
I have O'Hare in Midway there. Serious.
Yeah.
O'Hara's not that busy, right?
No, not at all.
Right.
And I probably shouldn't admit this, but I was able to fly with a pocket knife recently through here
Really?
with my checked baggage.
Did you just like forget about it?
Yeah, I forgot about it and got there, and I'm like, how did I get this through? And I'm like, well, I don't want to leave it here. I'll stuff it back where I found it and hope it makes it back.
Oh gosh.
Airport security has its ups and downs. You know,
Yeah.
I was flying a bunch when I was a while back, and I had a nail clippers with the little file that pops out that
Sure.
they took away from me. I get on the airplane and I open my bag to do some work, and I have a clipboard with one of those metal tops on the clipboard.
Right.
I'm like, this is far more dangerous than that. And
Yeah, you could like snap that thing off and kill
I'm
somebody with it.
Yeah, I was like, they took my nail clippers, so I can't file my nails.
Yeah.
But I have these if I really needed to. This is strange.
But could
Yeah.
could
Border
you file your
crossings.
nails with that clipboard? That's the important
there you
thing.
go.
Well, you know, that'd be not well manicured with the clipboard.
Yeah.
That would not look.
I hope that answered your question, Keith. We're gonna we got another question from Doombeard, one of my favorite
Oh, that sounds awesome.
names
Yeah,
ever.
I'm on board with this name.
He's another patron, Doombeard. He says, "Hi guys, I'm a patron with a question about downtime. Specifically, I'm curious about Edge and downtime. Is there a limit on using Edge during downtime? If Edge refreshes daily, can players use it every day? For example, for a player trying to fence gear and summoning bound spirits." Again, I want to hear what Scott has to say about this, because I know what Cassie thinks and I know what I think, of course. But Scott, how do you handle that?
No, Edge is gameplay only. I kind of keep it to that.
Okay.
Just because it can be abused, and it's hard to track. Because if you're playing and you're like, okay, well I used this edge to do this, and if you look into the rules, you don't get them all back every day. You get one back with a
Well, that's true.
with rest and some sleep.
Yeah.
And it could be like, well, I got 7 edge. I used all these, and you start the game and you're like, well, you summoned this spirit and used it. You did it on your resisting your drain. You summoned this spirit.
Right.
You got a little bit of rest. You're down 5. You have 2. And I'm like, what? I'm down 2. But then I have to track that between all of them. So I usually don't allow it. That's just gameplay. That's your luck in the moment.
Yeah, I do think that Edge, if you do let people use it freely the way that you can use it during a run and during gameplay, so to speak, if you let them use it that way during downtime, it's really easy to cheese. And just,
I mean, you might as well just use it every time if you're gonna have.
yeah,
a week
exactly.
of sleep
Why
or
wouldn't
whatever.
you just roll your Edge for every single thing you do? So I think it definitely does require, if you're gonna let them use it, at least have a house rule. And Cassie, I know that you use a particular house rule.
Yeah, and the Emerald Grid, and this comes out of an adaptation of Course. I can't remember what it is, but there's a social thing that social players can do, where if they edge a roll during this downtime activity, then it doesn't regain, I think, until they get karma again. So I adapted that just to apply to everything. So if you can use Edge on downtime activities on the grid, it does not refresh until the next time you gain karma. Which our sessions are one shots, so you regain karma pretty frequently. And
Sure.
even when I did a home game, I always gave people at least 2 karma at the end of every session. They were still alive, just so they were getting some karma progression. So
But if I understand the implications of that house rule correctly, that does mean that if you're using karma during downtime, you are going to be starting the run at a
Yes.
karma deficit. Or not Edge. I mean Edge,
Exactly.
not karma.
Edge, yeah, an edge deficit, yeah, and you don't get that back until after you finish
Right.
your run, so it can be risky to do. It usually makes people stop and think about it.
Yeah. I've always liked that
Is that
approach.
Does that include like the normal things you can earn it back for, like good role playing and those? You just kind of like, you had a 7, you got a 6 max for until you get karma again.
Yeah, so you can definitely regain it. You could regain it from good roleplay or something like that, because that's always an incentive we like to do in general. But yeah, normally it would be after the next run.
Sure. Well, I hope that answers your question, Doombeard, because I agree with Cassie. That's why I let her go first. That's essentially... I used to be like Scott, and then Cassie talked me into it, I think, during our actual play. She didn't talk me into it. She just mentioned it, and I was like, that's a good idea.
I think she's convinced me too.
I say, especially if you're a binder or summoner, you can, if you're not careful, you can literally kill yourself. So sometimes having a
and I think that's specifically a similar situation
helps.
is what is the reason I asked about it during our actual play. I think a magical character in our game, Elric, was doing something, and he was like, I need to use edge because otherwise, or maybe it was actually it might have been repairing a cyber deck, which is also scary to do without edge. So anyway, it's a good house rule. Yeah, those are our questions. Like I said, send us questions over at the website. If you'd like to send us questions and have us answer them on the show, then do that. But right now, we're going to do this. Oh, man. Almost did it without messing it up. We're on to the main topic portion of the show, and today we're talking about cognitive fragmentation disorder, CFD. And this is a topic that I like a lot, or it's a part of the world that I actually like a lot. I know a lot of people don't, and we're going to talk about some of that and why we think that might be later on in the discussion. But the first thing I want to do, of course, is first, Scott, why don't you tell everybody why we asked you to come on the show to talk to us about this particular topic?
Oh, because I'm the largest sucker behind making CFD a wonderful addition to the misery of Shadowrunners' lives.
was it actually your idea, your contribution to the world? Like, did you come up with the idea, or have you just done a great deal of writing and expounding on the topic?
I've done a great deal of writing and expounding on the topic, and I might have I actually don't remember. I write a lot, and I actually have gone back and read things that I wrote and been like, man, who wrote that? That's horrible. Oh god, that was me.
Well, if it's not inconceivable for I'm sure a lot of things are just you guys talking and coming up with ideas all together and whatnot, and this might have been one of those. But what CFD is? So for anybody who doesn't know and who's listening, CFD stands for Cognitive Fragmentation Disorder, and just straight up what it is it's a nanite-caused personality disorder. It's what happens is you're infected with these nanites that are programmed in such a way that they end up overwriting the host's personality, the person who's infected, their personality, with the personality of some artificial intelligence, an AI that is part of the nanites. Symptoms are things like memory blackouts, fugue states, altered personality, compulsion to eat non-organic material is another strange one. I want to go ahead and say before I forget that a lot of my notes, I did a lot of research by talking to and listening to Opti, Neo-Anarchist podcast episode that he did on this. So if after our episode you want to learn a lot more about it, you should check that out. He did recently a CFD episode, so I wanted to give him credit because he does tons of work researching all this stuff and laying it out. But anyway, that's CFD. But I struggle sometimes because this is a complicated topic. Do you think that understanding the history of it, that we should do that now, or do you think we should come back to that?
We can understand the basics of the history of it. It's pretty simple. AIs were trapped. Corporations have taken them and bottled them up into isolated machines. They can't access the matrix anymore, and they needed a way out. And the only thing they had access to was nanites that were being used in the facility and a bunch of scientists.
Right.
So they were creative little buggers, and they figured out a way to manipulate the nanites and use them to write themselves onto those poor scientists and onto poor Fastjack and Riser and the runners who kind of kicked off the trouble that went on that occurred in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
And then the rest is kind of history as their infection spread to other places and they worked to help other AIs, kind of do the same to escape, captivity only to be miserably stuck inside this meat form that has hormones and moods and has to eat and sleep and all these ridiculous things that they I gotta shower, I gotta this they absolutely loved Gen Con. They would just go and hang out there and just blend it in. They didn't have to shower, really
exactly.
much. but that became their escape route, and they got out, and that's the initial introduction of base CFD to the world, and they just began using it to escape. And some of them began using it because they were not happy to infect others, because the more soldiers they had in their little army to go destroy those who had imprisoned them, the better.
Yeah. Now, as you just said, it all started with these AI that were and e-ghosts, AI and e-ghosts that were being experimented on, and they were being experimented on by two mega corporations in particular, Evo and Neonet, correct?
Oh, poor Neonet. Oh, sorry. they're on their death spiral. Down they go.
Well, and it's because a lot of people found out. I mean, this is a large part of why they're in that death spiral, right?
Yep, because they pretty much got this pinned on them. While it's not, while no one ever admits to the public, because these are mega corporations, they don't admit anything publicly.
Sure.
The corporate court does one of you idiots is to blame. Who's going down for this? And they got the finger pointed at them, and just slowly, members high up just started stepping back and dishing off assets and trying to, control some spin. But they took the brunt of it, especially with Boston. Boston, they just got totally pinned on them because they're headquartered in Boston. It must have been their fault. If their headquarters got attacked, it must have been their fault.
Right. Now,
too many fingers pointed at them to start with.
Now, Boston is a funny situation because it's my understanding that it's strange in that it doesn't. What happened there bears little resemblance to CFD and its outbreak in the rest of the world. But if I understand correctly, that is when it became obvious that Neonet was involved, right?
Yeah, prior to that, and even prior to that, the existence of CFD was just, kind of this minor, like, hey, people got these associated identity disorders, and it just didn't seem to really be huge. And then Boston goes, lockdown and goes ballistic, and the rest of the world finally takes notice, despite the, encephalitis outbreak.
Right.
And they gotta have a cover, and then that became the kind of catalyst for something bigger is going on. Right. And it's a different strain. It's a side use of the original concept on a much larger scale and dragon. It's funny.
Well, Scott, before you go too much further, before you go too much further, I want to give everybody very quickly. Cassie's going to be worried looking at the notes. She sees that I have tons and tons of really detailed notes about the history. I'm not going to go into detail about the history. Those are mostly just for me so that I have to write things down so I remember them. But really very briefly, so around the early 2070s, these AIs were doing their thing. They had created the nanite vector for escaping, like Scott had just explained. And early to mid 2070s, street docs and everything started to sort of notice this personality disorder that was going on. And it started to become common enough that they identified that this is actually a thing. This isn't just like one-offs here and there. This is like an actual some sort of an identifiable cluster of symptoms that we could probably call a disorder of some kind. At that point, nobody knew what to call it. Or they were calling it CFD. They were calling it cognitive fragmentation disorder, but nobody knew much about the nanites yet. They just knew it was a thing. Lockdown, the book, and the Boston thing is what happened there is a lot of stuff happened there, but basically a big dragon exploded out of a building, sprayed nanites all over everybody, and everybody turned into sort of like zombie people. And it's the same thing in the sense that it is nanites with artificial intelligences in them infecting people, but it didn't affect them in the same way because of lots of reasons. If you really want to know the details about that, like I said, go listen to the Neo-Anarchist episode about CFD. He goes into a lot of detail about it. Or
go read the book.
Or even better, go get the book and read it. Lockdown. But the point is that NeoNet was involved in both of them. I mean, they're involved in the whole nanite AI experimentation thing altogether. They're kind of responsible for this happening in both cases, in the wider CFD thing and in the Boston thing. And that's when people were like, hey, people started to see the parallels. Oh, this is going on. And then also Fast Jack, as you mentioned before, on Jackpoint, him and Reiser had done some stuff that uncovered a lot of these details too. And so with all this information, they started to put things together, and we were like, hey, NeoNet is involved, and now we know what's going on. We know it has to do with nanites, and this is a big deal. So that's the historical context. I just wanted to make sure that everybody kind of knew how it flowed a little bit. But let's I'm trying to see where we go. So there are a lot of things that obviously people know that this is a thing now, and people knew that it's not just this weird personality disorder. Everybody's going like schizoid and whatnot, but they realized this is a legit thing, and it's caused by being infected by nanites. So understandably, the world started, or the people who knew about it started to go crazy. And that brings me to another question I have for you. How much of the world knows about CFD at this point? It's like the late 2070s. How much of the world knows that it's actually a thing?
The disorder itself, it's not exactly public. Corporations, the mega corporations like to hide everything. But the streets, it's widespread. The sheeple, not so much.
Sure.
So sheeple get it kind of hidden from them. They may read something on something called cognitive fragmentation disorder. Go see your corporate doctor if you're feeling any of these symptoms: fugue states, loss of memory,
right.
Waking up with blood all over your clothing, all those things. And it just, but that's where they get, where what they would know, and they just keep it hidden from them. But the streets, it's by this point after the lockdown post, because that was a Jackpoint post. The book was a post, so anybody has access to Jackpoint, so all those runners, and then that just kind of disseminated through the streets. So runners should be pretty well aware of it, but the public, again, it just becomes that mega corporations don't like really releasing information to the public, and neither do governments. The UCS government is going to be like, yeah, there was a giant outbreak of nanites. That's why we walled off that city. You guys are totally safe, though, because that wouldn't create panic at all.
I think they talk about it at the top of the Stolen Souls. Like there's a blurb like in the very kind of first page or section, and it seems like Evo is actually using it as a way to like potentially market, of like, we have new cleaning technology. You don't have to worry about our stuff, like do a PR.
Right. Yep. Evo's the one mega corporation that we decided, like, come on, Evo accepts everybody. And they have to. And it's just cool and becomes like the Evo thing. But now, even after that, Evo's maybe not near as accepting because it's a little creepy, but they're really loving the tech they're getting from it. Street Lethal will have a lot of tech that was offered to them from their CFD. Their Monad. We haven't gotten there yet, but they're Monad employees.
Let's talk about that then, because that's where this kind of like enters into how it could, in my opinion, the exciting way that this could interact with your games. But you mentioned it, monads. What are monads?
Monads are the CFD cases that have been cleanly overwritten. And they fully understand their AI heritage. It's not, some of them might have been some of the double copies, like the merging of a couple of AIs, children AIs that overwrite. not the ones that make you go totally schizo, because most of those had problems, but it's all the rest of them that did a very clean job of overwriting the host, and then they're all over the place, but they've realized that they're in a bad spot. They're not really keen on being hunted, so they wanted to come out, all join together, and in the long run, really get back to being AIs. They don't like their meat sacks. They're not really keen on that. They really do want to be back in the Matrix. They want that freedom.
Right.
Well, I think a lot of them, didn't they jump ship and actually go to Mars?
Gagarin got overwritten. All of Gagarin is entirely monads, and then a lot of Evo a bunch of Evo, and then a bunch of other corporations had people overwritten here on Earth, and then those are all trying to get together so that they can get to Gagarin for their the next phase of their plan, and that's Operation Get the Frag off of.
And I can remember, I think it's in Hard Targets. It mentioned in I think December 2078, didn't a bunch of them get on a spaceship and essentially fly into space to see what's out there?
Not yet. It mentions that their planned launch date is 2080. One of the upcoming books will actually talk more about it in Dark Terrors. Dark Terrors will have kind of a good progression of CFD into a more permanent state, what happens to the monads, what happens with the whole Doseki launch off of Gagarin. I don't know if it's covering what happens on Gagarin, but with the launch and their exodus, it all kind of covers that, and then leaves the boogeyman of CFD and the boogeyman of the monads who may have stayed behind, because some of them might like their meat sacks. It feels good to have a little endorphin rush here and there.
I think one of my favorite entries. Oh, go ahead, sorry. One of my favorite entries in the corporation outlook of it, because it's talked about a lot in Market Panic, the CFD different chapters it shows up in, and I think it's Sader Krupp who is extracting their own employees, pretending that extractions happen, but they're really just sending them to research facilities, right? To experiment on and stuff. Don't worry, Dad's been extracted to a new corp. I'm sure you'll miss him. He's just downstairs in a tube, right? Yeah.
He's in the basement. He's in the subfloors. Don't worry about him. Yeah, Cider Krupp had the very, you imagine a dragon at the top is going to be no thank you, but we're going to keep this, in-house.
Yeah.
So CFD and the monads and infected people, they're an interesting addition to the game, I think, because it injects that level of paranoia into the world that of course didn't already exist. But now you're not just worried about corporations following you and watching you and boogeymen, monsters and critters in dark corners of the world and everything. But now you have to worry about every time you shoot somebody, infected nanite blood getting on you, and every time you somebody coughs on you in a subway, are they doing that, or if you're extracting somebody, why are you extracting them? Asking extra questions. So because maybe they're infected and you should be taking extra precautions, and your Johnson's not telling you because they want to keep the extra hazard pay. But what is that the purpose as you see it? Both Cassie and Scott, both of you guys, as you see it, is that the purpose that CFD kind of serves the narrative or serves the story of the games that you're playing, or do you use it in other ways, or do you even use it at all?
For me, it was it really is that it's that scary kind of slightly different background thing that can take you over, not in a you get stuck in a cocoon and you're an insect spirit when you're done,
right?
But it's that slow, gradual change, and you can role play it out. It can take a long period of time. As a GM, you don't have to specifically go by what the rules say. You can slowly insinuate, blackouts and strange things happening for the character, and allows that additional level of role playing in the overall process and in the overall transition. And in my home game, the person who was infected was duped into it. They joined a group thinking that this group would give them like additional power, but the ritual that brought her in, they were just infecting her with nanites.
Right.
Every time she breathed in the steam in the ritual room, every time they told her to cut herself with the knife to to create that little bit of it was just infecting her more and more and giving her more and more nanites to eventually overwrite her.
So how do you feel then about, and I know that this is a complaint that some, and maybe this is a good segue to talk about some complaints about it, but I know that some people complained about giving like player choice in being infected with CFD, and how do you do so? First, let me ask you, do you think it's important to this player of yours, did they have a choice, or did you just have it happen? Did they know that would happen ahead of time?
They missed the warnings after they were infected. They looked back and like, oh my god, you have been baiting me this entire time, you've been warning me. She was doing research on other individuals who were already infected and had like the iridescence in their blood when she saw it. And it was all these little things, and eventually was just like, "Oh, you duped me." Like, yes, I did. But that was the point.
Right.
That you got to role play all the way to this point. But in terms of characters being infected and as a choice, sure, I'd always give them a choice. When we wrote the rules for how you graduate, like how you can become infected, we wrote them in a harsh manner, so that if your GM wants to be like, no, this happens, they can, but you're a GM. You can ignore every rule you want to.
Sure.
You can simply say, you know what, the nanites didn't take in your system, they didn't, they weren't able to do anything, or you're carrying it, but it's not overwriting you for some reason, and you give them that choice.
Yeah, I would.
Or you don't give them that choice, because sometimes not giving players choices is as fun as giving them choices. They don't get a choice when you shoot a gun at them, do you? Do they? No. They get a roll to try and resist being hit. So in this case, they get a roll to try and resist being
fair
overridden.
enough. But to play the devil's advocate, the argument that people would make is that when you shoot a gun at somebody, that gun doesn't take control over the actions of a player. So that's
no, but it.
Go ahead, Cassie.
Yeah, I mean, it could kill you or other such things that would suddenly cause you to lose control of your character.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah.
I don't. I mean, I'm one of those players though who doesn't avoid bad things from happening. Right? I've had a character become infected in play, and I could have burned the edge and decided not to. I wanted to try it out. Since we've been kind of looking over it, we've got a player who super kind of wants to be infected with CFD because they've always kind of wanted to play an AI, but AIs are kind of limiting in like what they can do and have some real challenges. And so that can be a fun way to, even if you just want to play a different character, but you don't want to re-roll, you like, here's a new personality, enjoy.
And that's a good.
Good. No,
that's a good transition into the choice. You can actually be like, well, I didn't say what this AI is. Once you transition, you can be whatever you want. Like, this AI overwrites you. The only urge you have is you hate Neonet. At the core of your being, you despise Neonet. Everything else, maybe you were a data tracking program, maybe you were a combat program, but in the end, you can you give them that, you can add that choice at the end if they didn't like being infected in the first place. Yeah, you give them a little bit of make whoever you want out of this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I kind of like that approach. You may not have had a choice to be infected, but you have a lot of choices afterwards, including to not, to have a say in whether the infection sets, or whether you guys get to take a new turn in your team. If your team is close enough, are you guys all going to now spend the next, several sessions looking for a way to cure it? No,
one of us. One of us.
We're now running 2 double runs. You have one group that's playing as like the ground, and another group that's trying to save them.
Yeah. I really appreciate the symptoms that happen, like the waking up and like losing your body, because the spirits do the same as spirit packs, and it's just one of those things that when you have something with those kind of 2 similar experiences, it's harder for the players to immediately go, oh, I read Streetwarmore, I know it's spirit possession. Like, no, I could totally just be CFD, right? Like, or
you could be infected.
Yeah.
I like they just sleepwalk. No, you just sleepwalk. No, just
Yeah, you just
sleepwalking
sleepwalk and you're
as the eater.
clumsy. Yeah.
So how easy is it? How easy is it for an infected person to infect another person through, say, through various means? How easy is that?
As easy as you want it to be.
Well, fair enough, but there are mechanics for it if you want to use those, right?
Yeah, the mechanics of it are, all you have to do is get some nanites in there and the process begins. And you get a really low pool because you have like your nanite power level and then the nanite concentration. So maybe you were infected with one of these, clusters of nanites who happen to have 17 different AIs currently written into the different pieces, and they're all trying to write it into different parts of your brain. So that's not working well because they keep working against each other. And I overwrite this. No, I overwrite
Right.
this. No, I overwrite this. No, I overwrite this. And they don't work together. And maybe you have tons of them, so they really mess you up, but you don't get taken over quickly. Or like you have a lot of fugue stakes, or you have the times where it's a really focused one. You have one AI and there happen to be a lot of them, and they have a really big dice pool to overcome your willpower plus your essence, because if you have low essence, it's really hard to resist being taken over.
Well, that makes sense, right? Because BioWare and cyberware, especially nowadays, that's how it works. There's nanites everywhere.
Yep, and gene tech, because there's already something manipulating your DNA there.
Right.
They just went and rewrote portions of that too to be like, oh no, you can't fix this. You can't change it back.
Right.
Which isn't true. You can change it back, but that'll be later when we start talking about the cures.
Yeah. So was CFD? So was it introduced to the world of Shadowrun as a cool story element? Or I know a lot of things, especially in Shadowrun, this happens where new parts of the story are added to justify a mechanical change or justify, something else. Do you happen to know why CFD was thought up as was it a solution to a problem, or was it just like this cool thing that we wanted to add to the world?
This is the point where I can really completely take credit. Right at near the end of fourth, when this was beginning to shift, and when you got the loss of Fast Jack and the loss of Riser and the rise of Plan 10, when you get all those, the goal going from 4 to 5 was to try and pull back a little on the transhuman elements that had occurred.
Sure.
And to do that, it's always good to have some form of story point, some reason. There's a reason why the Matrix was rewritten, because then Delamar decided the Matrix was too dangerous. Matrix gets reset into a harder state, alter the rules to fit that a little bit. Same thing happened with this. It was the goal was to kind of pull back a little bit on that whole transhumanism element that became really huge. It kind of shifted from being cyberpunky to being very transhumany. Now Evo is transhumany, but
sure.
The rest of the corporations, that really becomes their niche. Rest of the corporations are, back to being, trying to be more cyberpunky, more dystopian. And then this came in as a really good way to create that massive fear of nanotechnology, of nanofabrication. Buildings fell down because infected nanites were in the construction process.
Right.
Guns were built. Guns, nano fabrication machines started eating people so that they could churn out organic material, and it just didn't work. And all these little weird, odd things happened. But that was all to try and pull a little bit back on the nanotech portion of it.
Yeah, and I'd heard that. I'd heard that, but I didn't know how much
true.
of that was speculation or how much of it was true. So it's interesting to hear that it was true.
I'll take the blame. It's true. It's my fault.
Well, again, I don't even
enjoy
say that's a negative thing. I think
No.
I think that's something that's interesting that I like about Shadowrun is it being an ongoing, evolving, living world from edition to edition. There are story points that are made to justify changes that are being made to the mechanics or the rules or the tone of the game, stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
you guys did an episode about UMT, and
Yeah.
that changed between editions in order to justify some of the rules smoothing out,
exactly.
and even some of the some of the things that are going on now, where they talk about changes in, people's perspectives. It's to open up that, in these advanced magic books, to open up that freedom to have those different views and to have the styles. And we try to integrate story and rules as much as we can. It's hard. It's not the easiest thing in the world, because stories progress over several books, and a lot of times little chunks here and there. But
now, I want to ask. I want to hit on at least 2 more topics before we have to end the formal part of the episode. And at this point, let me say that anybody who's listening, there's a good chance that something you're interested in knowing about CFD we might not talk about it here, but save those questions, because Scott's going to hang out with us as we always do. He's going to hang out with us for the after party, and we're gonna party hard and answer questions. So save those questions and make sure to ask those when we're done with the main portion of the show. But anyway, so you mentioned it before about, and it's been talked about, curing. I know it's a really hard thing to do. If you're infected with CFD, it's supposed to be like really hard to get rid of it. If not, effectively nearly impossible. So what are the ways that exist, if any, to cure the CFD once you've been infected with these nanites that are overwriting your personality?
So the goal of, again, the cure was intended to be a story. One of the things that every time we offer a proposal out to Jason, his response to us is, how does this offer a good story for the players?
Sure.
So the cure is the same thing. You have to have a good story, and in order to have a good story, you have to have some form of struggle and difficulty in the process. So we didn't make it easy. It wasn't just, hey, throw some hunter nanites in the person, and it was fun to take some of those elements, like hunter nanites, they'll get it. And then to be like, nope, the hunter nanites get taken over. You just made it worse. And to have all those little elements of the buildup of how terrible it is, but to eventually realize that there is hope, and the hope comes in one of those other most a group that people often have a disparity of opinion on, for technomancers.
Oh, right.
And to give the technomancers an opportunity to be like, no, dude, I'm cool. I can cure CFD.
Right.
Or at least I can help you cure CFD. So their unique connection to the Matrix is going to be a portion of how they can open up the ability to, and then the actual cure is the story in, I think it was Data Trails, Body Hunt, kind of gave the idea of that you have to catch the person, and then you have to delve into their brain. You have to go, hack that organic node, and that organic node isn't necessarily there's a second portion to it, because you have to be able to go get the original copy.
Ooh, I remember hearing and reading about this. Yes.
As has long been rumored, every bit of data in the world that's ever been plugged into a computer, or is data in the organic computer in your head, is stored somewhere in the resonance realms. You know, giving that, like, technomancers can always go find anything they want to find on you. Well, guess what? So's you. Your personality is stored somewhere. Your organic data is stored somewhere out there, and that's an opportunity to go try and find that organic data and then get it re-uploaded. And some of the story elements of that are similar to the concepts that, once they fully flesh, will be similar to like metaplanar journeys, but it's resonance realms journeys, where you have to go and you're going to have to actually overcome and deal with these places, and some people's heads are pretty dark.
Is that
the story in Data
out?
Trails?
Yeah, is that coming out soon? Are we going to get to see those?
Those should be part of Dark Terrors.
That's really cool.
So it's 3 books down. Trog's done. Street Lethal's in the pipeline. Terror's in the pipeline. And I'm going to go click on another screen to try and remember what else is in the pipeline.
Jason said it. Origins is the Advanced Matrix book. I think comes out next year. As well as
that one is in the pipeline, and the Advanced Matrix book may be our way to really give some love to the resonance realms and places like that. That'll be that'll be my pitch for that portion of it. But
Sure.
So Dark Terrors and Street Lethal are the next two up in line.
That the whole thing that you just described about curing CFD has, and I read parts of it before. It's always got me really fascinated to try this sort of like 1 or 2 session one-shot thing where I take a bunch of like just a whole team of like deckers and technomancers, and that's the whole goal of like this 1 or 2 session like thing is you go in, because I feel like it has to be at least 2 sessions, because it's almost like 2 runs, right? First you got to go in and you got to, like you said, hack into the brain of the infected person. That's going to be tough to deal with that. Then you got to go retrieve the original core personality from the Resonance realms, and that's terrifying and scary.
And sometimes just finding them is difficult. They're not. You got to run to go find them, a run to hack their head, and a run to get the information from the Resonance realm. You got 3 parts, and you can, if you want, to include your whole team, you can kind of split the jobs up if you're a fan of running like parallel adventures going on at your same table.
Oh yeah.
Or you can open up that whole the Technomancer happens to open up the dissonance pool to allow people to go visit other places, and your jacked up street samurai walks into the Resonance realms and goes, this ain't my place.
Right.
And finally they're like, I'm not gonna pick on the Decker and the Technomancer before, because they know what's going on now. Roles have been reversed.
That's really cool. So the other thing that I wanted to ask before we have to close things out about CFD. There's so much to talk about, I think, with this. This is we're just kind of giving a lot of overview, but if you're able to say anything, where is the CFD story going? Are we able to? Do we know? Are we able to talk about it, or what can we expect?
From things in the works, Deep Space and the Shadows. Those are the 2. I actually wrote a little note on the thing you sent me earlier. So Deep Space, because Dissecchio leave, that little Exodus thing, it will work. It might not go off without a hitch. Nothing ever does.
Well, sure. I think we all could safely assume that there would be something happen.
Yeah. some sort of that could potentially have some kind of issues occur with it, and the rest of it, it will slip into the shadows. Boogeyman and the runners need to deal with the stories that have touched them personally. The members of their team who have become monads, the members of their team who are currently fighting the battle and need to be cured, and it becomes just another element of the shadows that can be there. You got bugs, you got Shadim, you got now you have your CFD, and you have all these options to play with in this world.
Sure.
And it will become an option without having to be, oh man, every book there's something with CFD. That's because every book has my name in it, and I did that. Just leave me alone.
Cassie,
I take the blame for that almost every time.
Cassie, you have been a little bit quiet the episode. What is it about CFD that you like or don't like?
I like the boogeyman. I like having those options out there. I like the AI, and CFD is a good way to do the AIs without having to kind of, stuff in they're hiding in a drone or, an amphidrome or something like that, right? It's just now you're hiding in someone's head, and I don't know. I like the scary things you can do when you just wake up and your body is missing and you wake up in different places. That Donnie Darko.
I do feel like it's a really good storytelling tool. I used to love doing fun things like that with the infected. With like vampires and stuff. Playing that sort of scary horror element, but seems like
I guess yeah, and I like some of the reasons for CFD lets me do something that's on the level that I would normally have used spirits or magic for. It lets me do it using more augmentations for my suits and stuff like that. So I don't have to worry about spirit possession. Everything's about magic, which tends to be a little heavy in my games. It gives me a chance to do something Matrix associated, Technomancers and whatnot, and scare street Sams because they have low essence or
right.
be infected, right?
it's a cool part of the I don't. Why is it? Maybe we'll close on this. Cassie, do you know what other than what I mentioned before, the small thing? What is it about CFD that everybody gets so, annoyed about, so angry about? What is it that people don't like about CFD?
I've got nothing. I have no idea. I stay out of those arguments. I like CFD. So
yeah, I know that it's a thing that people, because I'm kind of the same way, right, Cassie? Like, I know that people complain about it, but usually when those complaints start, I just am like, all right, see you guys, bye.
Yeah, most of it tends to be like, it's the internet, people complain about stuff. Okay, done with that conversation, right?
Right, which I don't want to say that in the sense that I don't think those complaints are valid. I just don't know what they are, and so I was.
Yeah. And Eric said, best here in the chat. He even mentions like he's not really a big fan of it, but Shadowrun's a buffet, and so that's fine. He just skips that part, right? He goes to different plot ideas. I don't really know why people get upset about something they don't particularly favor. It's like just, like open up a different book.
And Damien says here in the chat, Avenzi, Damien says people just hate it taking up space in unrelated books, but I don't buy that as an argument, because there's so much, like, Shadowrun books do that with everything. There's always multiple threads that are being woven into every book as it comes out, Yeah.
And I think I agree that's probably what some people feel about it, but it's all, like, why are we getting about CFD and Dark Terrors and whatnot? Why are we not getting the Matrix book or the Technomancer book faster or whatever? But it's kind of like, I think it's incredibly selfish and self-centered to be like, freelancers, why aren't you writing about what I want to read? You didn't call me and get me to help you make the book list, right? It's like, sometimes I have to sit through a rigor book being put out so I can get something cool afterwards. Like everyone likes their own thing, right?
Yeah, sometimes, and again, I'll ask. Let me just talk. Sometimes I think that people get a little, like they used to talk about the year of Shadowrun turning into like the 5 years of Shadowrun, where we're just putting out lots and lots of stuff, and that's really, really great. But I think I do feel like sometimes that's one of those consequences of that. People are used to all this stuff coming out, and they want it to be their stuff, and I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. CFD also does seem to be heavily fluff-driven, and I know a lot of those people that I've seen make the arguments they don't like CFD, they tend to be more interested in having crunch, and I can't think of a lot of, like, I'm not getting new guns usually with CFD. Like, I'm getting a story, right? So.
Well, before we close out the show, Scott, we just are you aware of? Do you pay attention to those complaints? Are you aware of specific complaints about CFD?
My fragile author ego stays away from those things.
Yeah.
Especially that one, because very early on I caught the flack. The lockdown is all me. I'm the only person who wrote in that book, so every complaint that comes up on that is my fault. So I was like, after the first few, I'm like, I'm just gonna ignore this now, and I'm gonna stick that to the rest of it. I'm just gonna be like, no, people will like what they like, and and if they don't like it, there's plenty of other stuff in the world. If they do like it, we'll happily write more of it. I happen to like writing fluffy stuff because it creates stories, and you guys, and I can write in the most generic way possible, and you can do anything you want with it.
Sure, yeah.
I write in rumors. You take that however you want.
Yeah.
It only becomes tough when we have to start like locking down, like, okay, this just occurred. All right, then that's solidly in place.
Right.
Much more fun to be like rumor.
Well, I for one am glad.
I try to.
I for one am glad that you do it, Scott, and so don't. Let me. Whoa. I can't get it right. One of these days, maybe by episode 75, I'll have the soundboard figured out. But okay, that music means that we have reached the end of the show, and that we're gonna head out. We had a CFD discussion, a topic that we haven't, that I wanted to do sooner but was afraid to. So I'm glad that we finally did it. It was a good topic. Next episode, that we're doing in 2 weeks. We're going to have back, he hasn't been here in a long time, we're going to have Opti back on the show. He's in the chat room right now. We're going to have Opti back on the show, and he's going to talk to us about another thing that we've been waiting a long time to talk about, which is the Sealy Court. So if you're interested,
another section with heavy opinion.
yeah, nobody
Yes.
nobody has any opinions about the Sealy Court and all
Fairies,
that
no.
fairy stuff, do they? No, of course
Much fun fluff.
not. So this will be the month of controversial topics.
Yeah, and especially the Sealy Court was listener requested. That's why we decided to do that one. A lot of people wanted to hear it.
Yeah. So there.
Yeah.
Scott, we like to always give our guests a chance to plug themselves or anything that they're working on or anything that they want people to know about before they go off. So is there anything like that you want to do?
It's always so difficult to plug myself, but I do have a Patreon where I write a lot of fanfic and some various. I'm working on my own RPG at the moment, so
Oh, cool.
that's over there. And, yep, it's kind of a post-apocalyptic sci-fi where the moon has been our destroyer. The moon broke and has fallen. Portions have fallen to Earth, and it's creates this kind of post-apocalyptic world, and working on that and trying to develop a rule set for it. And I do lots of fanfic. I actually have a Shadowrun fanfic that's keeps popping out chapters called Out of Time. That even though it hasn't gotten there yet, I'll just warn anybody who's headed there, it's going to involve CFD. Because I have lots of that. It's my favorite thing to write about. But yeah, that's about the only way I promote myself. Keep buying Shadowrun books because.
Where do they find the Patreon? Patreon.com/
Oh, my Patreon is my name, Scott Schletz.
All right, Patreon.com/Scott Schletz. We'll put it in the show notes somewhere if I remember. I will not forget. Okay, I will do it. I'm putting it right now. Patreon.com/Scott Schletz. It's in there. It'll make it. Cassie, what about you? You got anything you want people to know about before we go?
I'm trying to be more active on the Twitter again, so go check out Twitter. There's a lot of CFD facts going up, obviously, because I was reading Stolen Souls and stuff. So go read some short, interesting notes on the Twitter there.
Thank you for reading it.
Yeah.
No, I love Stolen Souls. The very first intro story you did just was like so many feels. It was so good. It was a good. One of my favorite short stories, I think.
I'm gonna have that terrible moment of which one was that?
Yeah,
oh, was that Freedom Isn't Free?
Yes,
that
Freedom Isn't Free.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
it was
I
so
love
good.
Isn't Free.
I'm gonna
That's
start
so-
posting that and random things so my runners see it when they're walking around just with no context.
Yeah. I am always just plugging the Shadowcasters Network lately, so head on over to our website, shadowcasters.network. We're doing all sorts of stuff on Twitch. Like I said, we've got a schedule up there for all the things we're doing this month. Damien's going to be playing some video games. Tomorrow night, if you're listening live, we're going to be playing Overwatch. Lots of other stuff too, lore Q&A, and we've got more stuff coming. I think we have, I don't know when we're going to do it, but we have plans to get some of us Shadowcasters together in a group and periodically, like every 2 weeks or every month or something, play Shadowrun, that Shadowrun online game, and just have a really fun time doing that. So
I'll play.
yeah, hey, we're gonna
Find
be
I'll
looking
play.
for people, and we're gonna put the group together. So
I wrote the story, so I'll play. I can kind of cheat though. I know what's gonna happen.
So if you want to contact us on the show, you can tweet at us at 6 World Podcast, email us at theshow@sixworldpodcast.com. Our website is sixworldpodcast.com. Our outro music, which you're about to hear, is Johnny Nuclear and the Meltdowns. Our logo artwork is done by David McDermott. You can find him at sixthworlddesigns.tumblr.com. From me, Cassie, and our lovely guest, I'm going to tell you bye for now, and we're going to stick around for the after party because we're going to answer some questions. So bye-bye.
Bye.
Off to the hotel lobby.
When the days have gone dark and the sky's turning gray, everybody in the world, they're just staying enslaved to technology's machines. We just feast for the screen, lost in reality, can't find peace in your dreams. Society sodomized by the lies and the greed. Addicted.
All right. Good job, guys. I'm going to stop and start the stream real fast as I do. And then, yeah,